Built to Last: Successful Habits of Visionary Companies by Jim Collins and Jerry I. Porras. Picture this. It's 1937 and two fresh-faced college grads meet up in Palo Alto, California. Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard have about $500 between them and a dream. They want to start a company. Now here's the kicker. They have absolutely no idea what their company will make. No revolutionary product. No brilliant invention. Just two friends who want to build something together. So what do? They start tinkering. They try making a bowling foul line indicator. Then a clock drive for a telescope. They even create a shock machine supposedly designed to help people lose weight. Most of these ideas flop spectacularly. For nearly a year, they just mess around in a small garage, trying anything that might earn them a few dollars. Not exactly the stuff of legend, right? Except that humble garage became the birthplace of Hewlett-Packard, one of the most respected technology companies in history. So here's the puzzle. How does a company with no master plan, no game-changing product, and no rockstar CEO become legendary? And why do so many other companies with brilliant ideas and charismatic leaders burn bright and then fizzle out? This mystery is exactly what Jim Collins and Jerry I. Porras set out to crack. They spent 6 years at Stanford University diving deep into 18 of the world's most enduring corporations. We're talking companies with an average founding date of 1897. Disney, 3M, Johnson & Johnson, Procter & Gamble. They didn't just study these winners in isolation. They compared each one to a direct competitor that started around the same time but never achieved the same legendary status. The result? The landmark book Built to Last, which has sold millions of copies and completely reshaped how we think about building great organizations. Today I'm going to share the profound wisdom from this book with you. By the end, you'll understand the timeless principles that separate legendary companies from historical footnotes. You'll discover that you don't need to be a genius with a world-changing idea to build something extraordinary. What you need is to become a clock builder. And trust me, by the end of this journey, you'll know exactly what that means. So what's the secret? What really separates the enduring greats from the merely good? When Collins and Porras examined nearly 2,000 combined years of corporate history, they discovered that most of what we believe about success is completely wrong. They shattered 12 common myths, but 2 stand out above all others. The first myth? The myth of the great idea. We're constantly told that to start something amazing, you need a brilliant, revolutionary concept from day one. But the research shows the opposite. Very few visionary companies began with a great idea. Take Sony. When Masaru Ibuka founded his company in the ruins of post-war Japan in 1945, he had no specific product in mind. He and his 7 employees literally sat around brainstorming what to make. They considered sweetened bean paste soup, miniature golf equipment. Their first real product, a rice cooker, was a complete disaster. They kept the lights on by making crude heating pads. Not exactly visionary. Or consider Sam Walton. He didn't wake up one day with a grand vision for Walmart. He started in 1945 with a single franchise 5-and-dime store in a tiny Arkansas town. His only goal was to run that one little store as well as he could. As he said himself, the overnight success of Walmart took about 20 years. It was evolution, not a lightning bolt of genius. Here's the fascinating part. Visionary companies were actually less likely to have a big, successful idea at the start than their comparison companies. They were tortoises, not hares. They stumbled more and took longer to find their footing. This discovery changes everything. The goal isn't just to launch a product. It's to build a company. Products become obsolete. Markets shift. But a great organization can adapt and endure long after its first idea has faded. Which brings us to the second myth, the myth of the great and charismatic leader. We're obsessed with the lone, brilliant visionary, the Steve Jobs or Elon Musk figure, who single-handedly wills a company into greatness through sheer force of personality. Without a larger-than-life leader, we think, a company is doomed to mediocrity. Wrong again. Many of the most significant leaders in these legendary companies were quiet, humble, and actively avoided the spotlight. William McKnight, who shaped 3M for over 50 years, was described as a soft-spoken gentleman. The founders of Procter & Gamble were known for being stiff and reserved. Bill Hewlett was more like a friendly farmer than a celebrity CEO. These companies had incredibly strong leaders, but so did the comparison companies. Strong leadership didn't separate the two groups. What did separate them was the kind of leadership. The leaders of visionary companies weren't focused on being the star. They weren't interested in being revered as geniuses. They were focused on building something that could be great long after they were gone. This is the single most important idea in Built to Last: clock building, not time telling. Imagine you meet someone remarkable who can look at the sun or stars and tell you the exact time, down to the second. That's impressive time telling. But what if you met someone who built a clock instead, a clock that could tell time forever, even after its builder was gone? Which person created more lasting value? The charismatic leader with a great idea is a time teller. They're the genius with all the answers. The company revolves around them. When they leave, the magic often leaves too. The leaders of visionary companies are clock builders. Their greatest creation isn't a single product or idea. It's the company itself. They focus on building an organization that can continue to thrive, adapt, and innovate through multiple generations of leaders and countless product cycles. David Packard and Bill Hewlett didn't see the audio oscilloscope as their masterpiece. Their masterpiece was Hewlett-Packard and its enduring culture, the HP way. Walt Disney's greatest creation wasn't Snow White or even Disneyland. It was the Walt Disney Company itself, an organization with an uncanny ability to make people happy long after Walt was gone. Clock builders ask different questions. Instead of, what products should we make? They ask, what kind of company do we want to build? Instead of, how can I be a great leader? They ask, how can I build an organization that will have great leaders for the next 100 years? This is profoundly liberating. You don't have to be a once-in-a-generation genius to create something extraordinary. You just have to shift your focus from time-telling to architecture, from showing off your talent to building a clock. So if these visionary companies aren't built on a great idea or a charismatic leader, what's at the heart of their ticking clock? What's the soul of the machine? The answer is something the authors call core ideology. Here's where we get to the very heart of what makes these companies special. Contrary to what most business schools teach, the most successful companies don't exist primarily to maximize profits. Profit is essential, like oxygen, food, and water for the body. You need it to live, but it's not the point of life. For visionary companies, business is more than just an economic activity. It's a way to express fundamental beliefs and pursue a purpose beyond making money. This core ideology is the glue holding the company together. It's the North Star, providing guidance and inspiration through decades of change. This isn't just nice-sounding theory. The research showed that in 17 out of 18 pairs, the visionary company was more ideologically driven and less purely profit-driven than its comparison company. This was one of the clearest differences they found. This combination of ideals and practical success is what the authors call pragmatic idealism. There's no better example than the story of Merck and a disease called river blindness. In the 1970s, Merck scientists discovered a drug that could cure this horrific disease, which infected millions of people in the developing world, causing intense pain and eventual blindness. The problem? The people who needed the drug were among the poorest on the planet. They couldn't afford it. From a purely financial perspective, developing the drug made 0 sense. It would cost millions with no hope of return on investment. So what did Merck do? Guided by their core purpose to preserve and improve human life, they went ahead anyway. And when they couldn't find a government or aid agency to distribute it, Merck made an incredible decision. They would give the drug away for free, forever, to anyone who needed it. Why? Was it just good PR? A cold, calculated business move? Roy Vagelos, the CEO at the time, said that not developing the drug would have demoralized the company's scientists, who believed they were there to fight disease. But he also said that such acts of goodwill somehow always pay off in the long run. This is the genius of the and. It's not about choosing between idealism or pragmatism. It's figuring out how to be both highly idealistic and highly profitable. Merck embraced both. As their former leader George Merck II famously said, "We try to remember that medicine is for the people. It is not for the profits follow." And he added, the better they remembered that, the larger the profits became. Core ideology has two parts: core values and core purpose. Core values are the organization's essential and enduring tenets. They're a small set of guiding principles the company would hold, even if they became a competitive disadvantage. They're not created, they're discovered. They come from within. For Disney, it's imagination and wholesomeness. For Nordstrom, it's service to the customer above all else. For HP, it's respect for the individual. The authors are crystal clear. There's no single right set of core values. What matters isn't what a company's values are, but that it has them, believes in them deeply, and lives them consistently. Consider Philip Morris, the cigarette company. Their ideology isn't about saving lives like Merck's. It's about personal freedom of choice, winning, and individual initiative. It's a defiant, almost rebellious culture. You may not agree with it, but the people inside the company believe in it passionately, and that's the point. The ideology only needs to be authentic and meaningful to the people inside the organization. The second part of ideology is core purpose. This is the organization's fundamental reason for being. It's the why that goes beyond making money. A purpose is like a guiding star on the horizon. You forever pursue it but never fully reach it. For 3M, the purpose is to solve unsolved problems innovatively. For McKinsey, it's to help leading corporations and governments be more successful. For Disney, it's simply to make people happy. A good purpose is broad and inspiring. If Disney's purpose was just to make cartoons, we probably wouldn't have Disneyland or Epcot Center. To make people happy is a purpose that can guide the company for centuries, no matter how it chooses to do it. So we have this clock, and at its heart is a powerful core ideology. This is the part of the company that's rock solid and unchanging. This is the anchor. But an anchor alone doesn't get you anywhere. A company that only preserves its core will eventually be left behind by a changing world. This is where the other half comes in. Visionary companies have an equally powerful, restless, almost primal drive for progress. This is the central dynamic of the entire book: preserve the core and stimulate progress. It's a beautiful paradox. On one hand, these companies are like conservative religious institutions, fiercely protecting their core beliefs. On the other hand, they're radical, revolutionary innovators, constantly pushing for change, improvement, and forward movement in everything not part of their core. They're guided by what the authors call the genius of the and they reject the tyranny of the or. The tyranny of the or says you have to choose. You can have change or stability. You can be conservative or bold. You can focus on values or make a profit. The genius of the and says, why not do both? Visionary companies don't seek balance. They seek to be both highly idealistic and highly profitable. They're both extremely conservative around their core ideology and extremely bold in their actions. So how do they do it? How do they stimulate this relentless progress? They use a set of powerful, tangible mechanisms. The first is one of the most exciting concepts in the book: big, hairy, audacious goals, or BHAGs. A BHAG isn't just a goal. It's a huge, daunting, exhilarating challenge that fires people up and gets their adrenaline pumping. It's clear, compelling, and has a finish line. It's a mountain to climb. Think of the moon mission in the 1960s. President Kennedy didn't just say, let's improve our space program. He committed the nation to a clear, audacious goal: landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth before the decade was out. At the time, the odds of success were 50-50 at best. It was outrageous. But that's what made it so powerful. It galvanized an entire nation. Visionary companies use BHAGs the same way. In the 1950s, Boeing was primarily a military contractor with almost no presence in commercial airlines. But they set a BHAG to become the dominant player in commercial aircraft and bring the world into the jet age. This led them to bet the entire company on developing the 707 jet, a move their rival McDonnell Douglas thought was too risky. Boeing took the gamble, and the rest is history. They didn't stop there. The 727, the 747, Boeing has a long history of making huge, risky bets that push aviation's boundaries. In the early 1900s, Henry Ford had the BHAG to democratize the automobile, making it so affordable that every family could own one. At the time, this was ludicrous. Cars were luxury toys for the rich. But this goal inspired his team to invent the assembly line and revolutionize manufacturing. In the 1950s, a small Japanese company set the BHAG to change the worldwide image of Japanese products, from cheap and junky to a symbol of quality. That company was Sony. A BHAG isn't a safe bet. It should be on the edge of what seems possible. It requires unreasonable confidence. But, as the authors found, these goals look far more audacious to outsiders than to the people inside the company. The people inside simply believe they can do it. The beauty of a BHAG is that it transcends any single leader. It takes on a life of its own, pulling the company forward for years, even decades. It's a classic clock-building mechanism. The second mechanism for stimulating progress is something we've already seen in the stories of 3M and Johnson & Johnson. Try a lot of stuff and keep what works. This is where companies mimic the biological evolution of species. As Charles Darwin discovered, species evolve through random variation and natural selection. In simple terms, multiply, vary, let the strongest live and the weakest die. Visionary companies do the same thing. They don't always succeed through brilliant top-down strategic planning. Often, they make their best moves through experimentation, trial and error, opportunism, and sometimes pure accident. Johnson & Johnson got into consumer products by accident. They started including a small can of talc with their medical plasters to soothe skin irritation. Soon, customers were asking to buy the talc by itself. That was the birth of Johnson's baby powder, which grew into a massive part of their business. 3M is the ultimate example. The company is a mutation machine. Their most famous products, like Scotch tape and Post-it notes, weren't the result of a grand strategic plan. They were happy accidents, born from a culture that encourages what they call experimental doodling. An employee named Dick Drew invented masking tape because he saw painters struggling with two-tone car paint jobs. Another scientist, Spence Silver, accidentally created a weak adhesive that nobody knew what to do with. Years later, another employee, Art Fry, was singing in his church choir and got frustrated that paper bookmarks kept falling out of his hymnal. He remembered Silver's weird adhesive, and the Post-it note was born. The invention of the Post-it note might have been an accident, but the creation of the 3M environment that allowed it to happen was anything but. 3M has built tangible mechanisms to stimulate this kind of evolution. They have the famous 15% rule, which allows technical staff to spend 15% of their time on projects of their own choosing. They have internal venture capital funds to support new ideas. They have a 25% rule, which requires that a quarter of each division's sales must come from products introduced in the last 5 years. This is purposeful evolution. It's about creating a system that constantly generates new branches, then having the wisdom to prune the ones that don't work and nurture the ones that do. Now, all this progress, these audacious goals and constant experiments, can create chaos. It can pull a company in 100 different directions. So how do visionary companies stay coherent? How do they make sure they don't lose their identity in the process of changing? This brings us back to the other side of the equation, preserving the core, and they do this with two more powerful mechanisms. The first is creating cult-like cultures. This might sound strange, even negative, but the authors use the term cult-like for a specific reason. Visionary companies aren't great places to work for everyone. They're only great places to work for people who fit. These companies are so clear about who they are and what they stand for that they don't have room for people who aren't willing to fully buy in. If you fit, you'll flourish. You'll feel like you've found a home. If you don't, you'll likely be ejected like a virus. It's binary. You're either in or you're out. Take Nordstrom, the department store famous for customer service. They have a one-rule employee handbook: use good judgment in all situations. This gives employees tremendous freedom. But this freedom exists within an intensely demanding culture. New hires start at the bottom, no matter their background. They're constantly measured, ranked, and rewarded based on sales and service. They hear heroic stories of Nordies who go to incredible lengths for customers. It's high pressure and gung-ho. It's not for everyone. The same is true at Disney, where employees are cast members in a show and everyone must adhere to a strict code of conduct and a belief in wholesomeness. Or at Procter & Gamble, where new hires are proctorized, immersed in the P&G way of doing things. These cultures are built through heavy-duty indoctrination, a demand for tight fit with the ideology, and a sense of elitism, the feeling of belonging to something special. This isn't a cult of personality around a single leader. It's a cult around the ideology. It's a powerful mechanism for preserving core values across thousands of employees and multiple generations. And here we see another beautiful example of the genius of the and. These companies have tight ideological control and wide operational autonomy. They're tight on values but loose on execution. As long as you operate within the core beliefs, you have freedom to experiment and take initiative. The final mechanism for preserving the core is perhaps the most straightforward, but also one of the most powerful: homegrown management. When visionary companies need a new leader, where do they look? Overwhelmingly, they promote from within. Across 1,700 years of combined history, the researchers found only 4 instances of a visionary company hiring a CEO directly from outside. They're 6 times more likely to promote insiders than their comparison companies. Why is this so important? Because people who've grown up in the company are steeped in the core ideology. They're carriers of the cultural DNA. Bringing in an outsider, especially at the CEO level, is incredibly risky. They might not understand the core values. They might change things that should never be changed, and dilute the very essence of what made the company great. This doesn't mean insiders can't bring radical change. Think of Jack Welch at General Electric. He was seen as a revolutionary who completely transformed the company. But he was pure GE, a homegrown product who'd been with the company for 20 years before becoming CEO. He was able to drive massive change while still preserving GE's fundamental character. Visionary companies don't just get lucky with their leaders. They build leadership development systems. They build clocks that ensure a steady supply of capable, homegrown talent. They have, as one P&G executive described it, talent stacked like cordwood. They're always planning for succession, ensuring a smooth transition of power that preserves the core ideology from one generation to the next. So we have these 5 powerful concepts: big, hairy, audacious goals, cult-like cultures, trying a lot of stuff, homegrown management, and one final idea that weaves through all of them: the belief that good enough never is. This is the relentless drive for continuous self-improvement. It's a habit of mind that asks every single day, how can we do better tomorrow than we did today? For these companies, success is never final. There's no finish line. There's a story about a martial artist kneeling before his master to receive his black belt. What is the true meaning of the black belt? The master asks. The student answers, the end of my journey, a reward for my hard work. The master sends him away. A year later, the student returns and answers, a symbol of the highest achievement in our art. The master again sends him away. Finally, a year later, the student returns and says, the black belt represents the beginning, the start of a never-ending journey of discipline, work, and the pursuit of an ever higher standard. The master smiles. You are now ready to begin. This is the mindset of a visionary company. They institutionalize this quest for improvement. They create what the authors call mechanisms of discontent to fight complacency. P&G has its brands compete fiercely against each other. Walmart has its Beat Yesterday books, tracking sales against the same day last year, forever pushing for more. Marriott relentlessly invests in training and quality, while its rival Howard Johnson rested on its laurels and slowly faded away. This brings us to the final, unifying idea. It's not about any one of these things in isolation. It's not just having a BHAG, or a strong culture, or promoting from within. It's about alignment. A visionary company is like a great work of art. All the pieces work together in perfect harmony. The core ideology, the drive for progress, the goals, the strategies, the culture, the pay systems, the office layout. Everything is aligned to send a single, consistent set of signals. It creates a total environment that reinforces the company's core and constantly stimulates progress. Writing a vision statement is easy. That's the end of the beginning. The real work, the hard work, the never-ending work of the clock builder is to bring that vision to life by creating a web of reinforcing mechanisms so powerful and consistent that the company becomes an unstoppable force. It's about sweating the small stuff, because in the end, the little things are the big things. It's about creating a masterpiece where, as the great architect Mies van der Rohe said, God is in the details. When you step back and look at the whole picture that Built to Last paints, what's truly striking is how simple yet profound its central message is. It's not about finding some secret formula or magical shortcut to success. It's about discipline. It's about consistency. And most of all, it's about making a conscious choice. The most powerful lesson, I believe, is that greatness is not a matter of circumstance. It's a matter of conscious choice and discipline. The book completely demolishes the idea that you have to be a born genius or have a once-in-a-lifetime idea to create something enduring. That's incredibly empowering, especially when you're just starting out. It tells you that what matters most isn't the hand you're dealt, but how you play your hand. It's about what you build. The idea of being a clock builder is a mental model that can change how you approach everything. It shifts your focus from short-term results and personal glory to building systems, processes, and cultures that can thrive without you. It's the ultimate act of leadership, to make yourself, in a way, unnecessary. This isn't just a lesson for CEOs of giant corporations. It's a lesson for life. How can you be a clock builder in your own life? How can you build systems and habits that run on their own, that carry you toward your goals even on days you lack motivation? How can you build a family, a team, or a community with a strong core ideology, a set of values that guides you through tough times? So how can you start applying these ideas today, right now? Here are 3 simple things to think about. First, start building your own clock. Take a moment to think about your own personal core ideology. What are your core values? What are the 3 to 5 principles so fundamental to who you are that you'd never compromise on them, no matter the cost? And what's your core purpose? Why do you do what you do, beyond just earning a living or getting good grades? Discovering this for yourself is the first step to building a life and a career of meaning and consistency. Second, set a personal BHAG. What's a big, hairy, audacious goal that both excites you and scares you a little? A goal for the next 10 years. Not something you know you can achieve, but something that will force you to grow, to stretch, to become more than you are today. Maybe it's learning a difficult skill, starting a project, or making a certain kind of impact on the world. Write it down, make it real, and let it start pulling you forward. And third, practice the genius of the and. The next time you face a difficult decision that seems like an either-or choice, stop and ask yourself, how can I do both? How can I pursue my passion and be practical? How can I be disciplined and creative? How can I be humble and ambitious? This simple question can unlock solutions you never thought were possible. In the end, Built to Last is about legacy. It's a reminder that the most fulfilling path isn't just about achieving success for yourself, but about building something of such intrinsic excellence that it's worthy of lasting. It's about creating something that makes a contribution, that improves the lives of others, and that continues to tick along, making its mark on the world long after we're gone. That was a summary of Built to Last by Jim Collins and Jerry I. Porras. We've touched on the core ideas today, but a summary is like looking at a map of a beautiful country. It shows you the layout, but it can't convey the feeling of actually walking the ancient streets or seeing the sunrise over the mountains. The real magic of this book is in the details, the dozens of stories and deep historical accounts that bring these principles to life. If any of the ideas we've discussed today have sparked something in you, I truly encourage you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just about gaining knowledge. It's an experience that can fundamentally change how you think about building your future. A link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us reach more curious minds like yours and ensures you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book. Let's keep learning and growing together.